without further ado, let's actually jump in here and talk about value mapping. Here's my promise to you. By the end of this live class, you'll have a framework to understand how your customers actually feel about your product or service. Okay, this is really, really critical. What I'm walking you through is something that I have done with basically every client we have worked with. It is super important to have a good understanding of your value, and this exercise that I'm showing you is really helpful for that. Real quick, just so you know a little bit about my background, there's a lot of first timers here. I've worked now with over 80 software and service companies, helping them build a repeatable sales process. That's my whole world, is really like geeky, nerdy sales process stuff. You'll notice I'm not one of these like rah sales leaders that button my shirt down to here and talk about money all day. I have a little bit of that in me, but for the most part, like, I'm very operationally minded. I take a very data-driven approach when it comes to running sales organizations, and I believe that that is the best way to build and then scale a sales function, is by using data, making decisions based on data. I've written 3 Amazon best-selling books. One is on cold outreach called Cold to Committed. The other is on leading sales teams called the Sales Development Framework. And then the third one, the most recent one, is 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales. You can find them on Amazon if you're curious about those. I've helped our clients sell over 100 million in software and services. Of our venture-backed clients that I've worked with, which has been probably like 20-30% of our clients, not as many as you'd think, 280 million in money raised. And I've trained over 1,000 salespeople. So I've been around the block. I've been in an SDR cold calling. I've been in account executive selling. I've been in board meetings while sales is going well. I've also been in board meetings while sales is not doing very well. Those don't excite me, I promise you that. So I have a lot of contacts. I've been in a lot of different places. Real quick plug. Like I said earlier, this is not a big sales pitch. We don't work with very many clients here, and we are totally full. We have like one slot and someone's going to sign a contract tomorrow. So we are totally full. But if you'd like to learn how we can help you, if you're at the point to where you're building your first sales team and you need some support, or you have a sales team that's just not going all that well, those are the people that we help. If that's you, you can reach out, we can have a conversation, and then maybe, late January, we'll have something open up and we can talk about that. Okay, cool. Well, here's real quick what I want to talk about. Most companies fail to understand their customer's perspective, which makes you sound pushy, irrelevant, and not as good as your competitors. The better you understand the buyer, you and your team. Like, as a founder, you might understand the buyer and go, Kyle, what are you talking about? I know my buyer very well. I was my buyer, right? So a lot of you would say that. But what about your sales team? Just because you know it doesn't mean that they know it. And what I have found throughout my entire career is that the best salespeople are the ones that deeply understand the market that they're serving. They understand the buyer and the buyer's day to day. So how we really nail down on the value we're providing to the buyer from their perspective is an exercise called value mapping. Okay. This exercise, like I said, is something that we do with almost all of our clients, and it helps you get a lot of clarity around what drives the value for your customers and how you actually stack up at providing that value. And I'm going to walk you through an exercise that we recommend doing. Okay. And I'm going to walk this through you step by step. I will also give you this exercise at the end. Don't let me forget, by the way, sometimes I forget to put it in the chat. Don't let me forget to comment the link to this, but I'll give this to you so you can follow it with your team. Okay. So this is an actual exercise. You're actually going to have to do stuff, but let's walk into it. So first I want to give you this idea of the value stick. And there's really 2 ways to create avenues of competitive advantage. And we use this value stick here. You can kind of see it on the right, which is increasing willingness to pay and decreasing willingness to sell. This is like a business school concept, which for any of you who know my background, know I dropped out of college to do stand-up comedy. I'm supposed to be on stage in front of a bunch of drunk people right now, but here I am fighting a tsunami for you instead. That was what I was meant to do. This is all very technical stuff. The idea here is what you want to do is you want to increase your customers' willingness to pay for your product or service and decrease their willingness to get rid of it. That's the whole idea. This is not a super complicated thing, even though they like to use words to make it sound a bit more complicated. Real quick around why value maps, and then I'm going to give you the step-by-step process. This is a quote from Harvard Business School. If a company does not communicate and execute its strategy, it does not have a strategy. And you can apply this to anything. If you don't communicate and educate your sales reps on the buyers that they sell to, you don't have buyers. And I'm doing a little bit of a leap there to make that analogy work. But my point is, the sales reps need to be able to communicate with the people they sell to, and understanding the value that those buyers are getting is a big component of this. Value maps are the vehicles that link strategy formulation with strategy execution. They show how you stack up against your competitors in the eyes of your customers. This is critical. We've all heard of product market fit. It's a very, very important aspect of being successful. A lot of times, especially at the early stage, I feel like founders have this delusion that they're going to hire sales reps and things are going to work out. Oh, I just need to hire a really good closer. It doesn't really work that way. There's a lot of variables involved. In fact, top performing sales reps, like the real top performers, when they're looking to join a company, it might be you're interviewing them, but they are just as equally interviewing you, and they're taking into account the value the product provides, dominance in the marketplace, where you stack against your competitors. Like, these things are really important. So here's the process for the value drivers. One, you need to name the value drivers. I'm going to go through each of these in more detail. I just want to give you the high level here. Name your value drivers, rank your value drivers, identify the competition, self-assess, do a gut check with your customers, and then optimize for value. And by the end of this, you're going to have a clear vision on your company's value proposition and associated value drivers. You're going to have an action plan to improve your company's value in the market, and you'll have activities to support the improvement with clearly defined owners to improve, right? Increase willingness to play, decrease willingness to sell. You need to take actions to do that. And then finally, a way to track and measure success. All right, let's talk about step one, the actual value drivers themselves. So what they're really doing here is you're naming what motivates the customer's willingness to pay for your product or service. So meet with your team and list your company's top 7 to 10 value drivers on the right here. And you want to do customer interviews or focus groups if you have no idea, but you should have an idea because you built something for them. You have an offering to them. But if you have no idea, like, it can be really helpful, or if you need support, it can be really helpful to interview customers, do focus groups. Usually that's because you have a really complicated product and there's a lot of things that could go here. But what do I mean by what value drivers that you need to put here? These are what the customer's actually experiencing from using your product or service. So let's say you sell a marketing automation tool. One of the value drivers might be automatically send reminder emails or automatically send emails to people after they've downloaded a resource on your website. That's valuable, right? It could also be track the source of a lead that comes in, so you can have marketing attribution to what channels you're using. Let's say you have a service and you sell like video editing services, like you're like a YouTube agency or something. It could be a delivered YouTube video, which is probably going to be a big value driver, right? But also editing of a YouTube video. They don't have to hire an editor now because you're an agency that does that. Every piece of value. Sometimes people get caught up and they just list features here if they're a software product. That is somewhat correct, but it's actually the value of having that feature, right? So it's not just email automation, it's email automation applied in this way that's giving value to that customer. So like I said, sending emails after somebody downloaded something on the website, as an example. Lead scoring is a feature. Lead scoring to prioritize what leads to send to the salespeople. That's a benefit, right? So I want you to really think like the value that they're actually getting. And they are somewhat tied to features. Sometimes it's a collection of features for one value driver. Any questions on this, put in the chat. We'll get to it at the end. Once you have all of those listed out, then you actually want to go through and rank the value drivers. So what does that look like? You have them all listed here, and you're going to put them into, from your perspective, what you believe your target customer finds most important, 10 being the least, and then 1 being the most important. So if you remember to go back twice here, we listed out the full 10. You're basically ordering them by what you feel the customer would order them in. So you're going to put yourself in the customer's shoes. I like doing this in little groups that are like department groups. So if you're a little bit larger, maybe you have a few different executives, like all come together and each of you rank them yourselves. You can do it all together and come to like one that you've all agreed on as the ranking that your customers would rank them as. But I prefer doing different groups, but I'll get to why in a minute. All right, step number 3, the competition. This is simply listing out all of your competitors. And let me just go on a little rant here for a second, in the spirit of a tsunami. Competitors are often fairly ignored. I'd actually like to, if you can comment in the chat, how many of you have actually say yes or no to this question. I have a very strong understanding of my competition's offerings. Yes or no? Put that in the chat. I'm very curious to see what people say here. What I have found is that a lot of people feel like they kind of know their competitors, but they don't actually know a lot about their competition. So it's easy to just list out 7 competitors here, but I strongly encourage everybody to spend the time to try to understand your competition as deeply as you can. The reality is they do certain things for a reason, and you want to try to figure out that reason. So I'm looking here, no, yes, yes. So we have some people who do, some people who don't. That's good. Okay. So like I said, it's very important that you have a strong understanding of competitors. And I get it. Oh, no one actually competes with us because we do things so differently. It's BS. But a competitor could be a spreadsheet, by the way. The amount of founders who will say to me, it's like, oh, well, how are they doing it today? They're using a spreadsheet. It's crazy. Well, if the spreadsheet's working, why would they change? They probably wouldn't, right? Okay. Cool. So we got the competitors here. We have them ranked in the little groups, like I said before. Then we do what's called the self-assessment. With your value drivers still ordered by most important to least, rank your company's performance against them on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being poor and 5 being exceptional. So all of those value drivers you just ranked, you're going to look at them and say, how well do we do this thing? And what you might find is that one of your value drivers is pretty high up, at least from your perspective of how the customer views that value driver. It's pretty high up on the list, yet you don't do it all that great. Maybe it's just a 3 and it should be a 5, right? So you go and you rank how well do we actually perform on these value drivers, okay? The next is the gut check. Here's what I recommend doing. There's a survey here that I recommend you do, and you send it to your current customers that fall within the ICP. So some of you might have a bunch of customers from maybe you use to target a different market or whatever, but really focus on ICPs here, ideal customer profiles, and ask them, send them the survey to get what they think about your company's value drivers. Why do we do this? Because you want your customers to tell you how they rank those value drivers. And why I said it's nice to do those in little department groups when you rank those value drivers is because you can see how they compare per department to what the customer actually thinks, the reality, by using the survey. Now, what you'll end up getting is something like this. Okay, this is the value map for Southwest Airlines. And you can see the most important are low prices. They rank that the highest. Okay. Full service airline, who they compete against, they get a 1 on pricing. They're a lot more expensive than Southwest Airlines. And then Southwest Airlines, they get a 5. And that's what you're collecting from your customers is how they rank it. So let me just really nail this home. I'm having you rank them yourselves to really show you how wrong you are. The reality is all that matters is how the customer ranks them, right? But I want that to be crystal clear to you. And guess what? A lot of times the salespeople are pretty off too. So it's really helpful to give yourself an idea of how well are we aligning with our value drivers and how well do each of the departments align with our target customer. Product sometimes is way off on this one. They think something's valuable that totally isn't. Okay, so let me go through this example again. I'm going to move my mouse over here. So you can see next is friendly service. They're, what's this little dotted line? Oh, that's a bus. Okay. That's one of their competitors is a bus, I guess. And, the bus is not doing that great for friendly service, but man, Southwest Airlines is very friendly. Frequent departure, Southwest is great. On time arrival, Southwest is great. Except maybe until recently, right? Didn't they have a big thing like a year ago or something where nothing? Oh yeah, they did. They got behind, and no one got to their place on time. Fast transportation, they gave themselves a good score. Convenient airports, now they're starting to get a little lower. Like, hey, our customers are giving us a 3 on that one. You're in the survey, you'll see you're also asking them how well they feel you're doing at that thing. Extensive network, onboard amenities is really low, right? But on the list of 10 value drivers, so maybe it is important to think through that. So as you can see, by ranking these from the perspective of your customers and actually mapping out how you're doing compared to the competition, you can get a really clear picture of where you need to focus to help increase willingness to pay. So for example, imagine if Southwest Airlines here, their friendly service, which is out of 10, like maybe they're assholes and their friendly service was out of 1. Like maybe they're competing with buses in service. Could you imagine? Well, that's the second highest value driver. Not good. We can't do poor service there, right? We need to be able to compete there because it's an important value driver. All right. Has this made sense to everyone? Type yes in the chat if this is making sense and you're starting to see it all come together. Okay. And as you're typing yes and validating me, I'm going to move to step 6, which is value optimization. But here I am. I'm going to look through the chat and make sure you guys respond. Okay. Anthony understands it. Good. Yes. Nick, you understand it too. I need more yeses here. Come on, hit me with all of the yeses. Martin, you get it. Good. There's a lot of people on this live class, and I want everyone to participate, or it makes me sad. Yes, good stuff. Okay, cool. Great. I've bullied some of you, and now another wave is coming through. All right, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. I'm feeling happy. I'm satisfied. All right, so that is the first 5 steps. That's like the big outcome. But then there's value optimization, and what you're about to see on this next slide, folks, is probably my most advanced slideshow tactic ever. We have an animation, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for me. That's right. I sat down and I created an animation to make this spin for you, right? It's for you. Okay. Once your value maps are complete, you will review them and then decide which value drivers you want to prioritize for improvement. This is what we were talking about before, right? By looking at how your customer is actually scoring you, you can really prioritize them for improvement. Now, by the way, if you're earlier stage and you don't have that many customers, you might have to maybe take some leaps here. You might have to interview a couple of folks who aren't paying you but are in your target market. Like you might have to get a little bit creative or just use your gut judgment. But you want to decide, hey, which value drivers are we actually going to prioritize for improvement? And then the next thing here, once you have those named, so which value drivers you want to prioritize, these are the questions that you want to ask. 1, what activity supports value creation? So if we want to improve that value driver, what activity do you do actually supports it? Maybe it's a service component, right? Maybe you're a service business, or maybe your software that has a service component. Maybe it's onboarding. One of the value drivers is onboarding. It turns out that actually mattered to people more than you thought. Well, what do we do? How can we do better there, right? So what activity actually support that? The second is who's responsible for that, giving it to somebody. This is your job, is to improve our effectiveness at this value driver. And then 3, how do we measure success, right? This is, hey, we're setting up a goal, right? That is the value mapping exercise. I'm going to jump into Q&A here. Before I do, I have a really important request, and do not click away because this is very important. And for those of you who come to these a lot, you probably already know what I'm about to say. I just posted a survey in the chat. This survey is incredibly important. And before I answer the questions, let me tell you real quick about it. I do these every single week. They're fun for me. I enjoy them. Hopefully you could tell that part of it. I enjoy doing these, but I also want them to be very valuable to you. So this survey gives me an understanding of what you thought of the topic. How do you think this went? Was this a good use of your time? How you heard about us? It gives me a lot of information that allows me to continue to make these better and better week over week. And for those of you who've been here for a while, you know I always beg for the survey, and that's because it genuinely helps me make things better. This is not a glamour metric to me. I'm the only one who looks at the freaking survey. I also this isn't leading you to my calendar to book a sales call. Like this is genuinely just to get feedback on what this or what you thought about this live class. Very helpful for me. Again, I'm the one who looks at it and I use this to make tweaks to what we're doing. I will also say that I have a goal of getting 100% of the people who attend to actually fill out the survey. It is 60 seconds to do the survey, if that. If you could please do the survey, that would be incredibly helpful to me. All right, let's scroll up. Normally I go top to bottom, but there is one question because of the spin on the slide deck. Martin asked, does this make you a spin doctor? It might. It might. If you mean that negatively, then it doesn't. You mean if it's like political spin, no. But if it means like I can spin around on my back very quickly, then yes, I am. All right, first question here. We are helping a few B2B startups originating from India who are from our community expand them internationally. We have a deep network in MENA region and help with end-to-end sales in that region. Recently, we are helping 2 of our clients via lead generation project. We are doing cold calling first time in the USA from India. 95% of calls are going to voice emails, and we are not able to solve this. Any suggestion would be really helpful. Okay, what is the question? The question is, my dial to connect rate is low. 95% of the calls are not being answered. So that means 5% of the calls are. Let me tell you some stats around connect rate. That's what this is called. I make a call. What percentage of the time does it get answered? That's connect rate. If I take a cold list out of ZoomInfo, the dial to connect rate is going to be around 5%. That'll be calling mobile numbers, direct lines, like office numbers, generally around 5% connect rate. And you're right, that is challenging. You make 100 cold calls, you talk to 5 people. Obviously, if you fix that number, then you're going to do a lot better. So let me talk about how we can fix this number. The first thing is the better the list, the better that number is. That's the reality. The more quality the phone numbers, the better that becomes. So you can get a couple percentage points just from having better lists. So that's an important thing to realize. The second one actually comes from the activities that your team is doing, the distribution of activities, I should say. So for example, if you call, let's take a cold list of 100 people. If I call through them once, I connect to 5 people. Now I have 95 leads left, right? Well, as I keep calling through, it's not going to be 5% every time, right? It's going to start to drop down a bit. So maybe the next call through, I only connect to 4 people. So now there's 91 on the list. And then the next call through, I only connect to 3 people. So now I'm at 88. And then next time, 2 people. Now I'm at 86. And then 1 person. Now I'm at 85. What's happening is the density of that list, the density of people who don't answer their phone in that list is increasing because we're just calling through it and pulling out the people who actually answer their phone. If you take a list of 100 leads, who knows what percentage of that list actually answers the phone at all, ever, under any circumstances, right? Some people just never answer their phone. So you're pulling those people out of the list, which means there's a higher density of leads in that list that don't answer the phone, which means your dial to connect rate will continue to drop. Okay, so that's just the concept I want everybody to understand here. This is what's happening with outbound prospecting. So how you can fix your dial to connect rate is by calling the people who've answered the phone before more often. A lot of times I see teams call through a cold list. Someone answers, says not interested, hangs up on them. They mark them as connected and they just never call them again. Oh, they said not interested. Now they don't call them again, or they won't call them for a while. Wrong. I want to call those people quite a bit. So you want to build up a list of connected leads. If you look up on, if you type in like Voris lead statuses in Google, you'll see I have a video and I think I have an article on our website about this. You want to organize your leads based on if somebody has answered the phone or not, and then have your reps both call brand new leads, right? And leads that they're still trying to get a hold of. Like you still need to get through those leads, but then also spend time calling their follow-up list or people who have answered the phone before in the past but didn't book a meeting. So anyway, that's a very detailed answer to that question. Hopefully I didn't bore anybody, and that was something other people had that kind of question too. All right, let me scroll down. Let's get to another question here. Do you actually have a different list of value drivers for each enterprise prospect? Okay, this is an interesting question. So if you sell an enterprise product and it's very robust. Do you have a different list of value drivers for each enterprise prospect? Kinda. So if you if you sell into different verticals, you may do this vertically specific. Totally common. The other way would be product oriented. So all of our customers that use the finance module, we are doing the value drivers for our finance module because it's essentially a standalone product, but it's also part of a suite of solutions that you can sell. So hopefully that answers your question. If you have a follow up there, let me know. But that's how I usually think about it. It's less one company's specific value drivers and more our product offerings value drivers, either by product offering or by vertical or both. Okay, depending on how complex you want to get. Real value driver animation. That's funny. Yes, I one of my value drivers for my customers is animation skills. Okay. We need such classes. So somebody on LinkedIn said onboarding is crucial, and when done effectively, it often leads to success. We need such classes. If you're asking like, hey, can we get a live class? Please fill out the survey if you haven't yet. By the way, I'm posting it again. But like, if we want a live class on onboarding, I do that. I do that one. So I have a live class on onboarding that I do every couple of months. Give me 1 second here. I realized on LinkedIn I did not post my survey. Please fill out the survey if you're watching on LinkedIn. That would be great. Okay. Oh, whoops. It's just me talking twice. Okay, cool. So yes, onboarding is also very important. I do a live class on this. One thing I want to highlight on onboarding, which is why I treated that one like a question, even though it wasn't, is sales reps don't complain about bad onboarding during the bad onboarding, or rarely do they. But what happens is if they start struggling later on, they point to the bad onboarding as like, hey, look, this company sucks. They didn't even onboard me well. And then makes them disgruntled. Okay. Another question here. How do I take the value drivers for a specific enterprise prospect and turn it into closing a deal and not get into price negotiation? Example, do I keep repeating the value driver or score on it throughout the sale? So the value drivers are meant to be like something that we do at a company level, not specific to a sale. So this is very important to understand. Like this is more of like company strategy conversation, not sales tactic. If you are selling an enterprise product, there will be pricing negotiations. That's part of it. They're going to negotiate pricing. So it depends on what really is happening with the enterprise sales. Like, are they doing an RFI? Or are they not doing RFI? Is this a direct sales? It's small scale just for one department. Maybe there's less pricing negotiation versus a larger solution that's much more complicated. There probably will be. Do we do usage-based pricing? And they might want to negotiate on how much they're paying per action, whatever it might be. So you don't, is sort of my answer here. All right. Why would you call the people say not interested often and possibly piss them off and block you? Good question. So it doesn't piss them off and they don't block you. That's the reason. Oftentimes we feel like, I don't mean call them every day, by the way, but let me give you a real example. When I was an SDR, I used to call salons and spas, and salon owners are in their salon cutting people's hair when you call them. So it's not uncommon for them to answer the phone, or like I get passed through the gatekeeper and they're like, hello. And you start talking, they go, not interested, hang up. And they keep cutting the hair. I used to call them 2 days later. They had no idea who I was. So you will make that decision, or your reps will make that decision based on what that conversation was like. If you had a long conversation with somebody and they were like, hey, I just don't think I'm interested at this time, maybe you wait a month, maybe you wait 2 months. I don't know. You have to make that decision. But if they said not interested and hung up on you, you can call them the next week. They're most likely not going to remember. Now, if it's a situation where you're calling into a market where they don't get a lot of cold calls and you get remembered every single time when you call them a week later, push it out 2 weeks, whatever. Like my point is, you need to have a cadence of following back up with those people, because just because they said that they're not interested now doesn't mean they're never interested at all. And you know what sucks? Calling a prospect that said not interested 8 months later to find that they went with the competitor. That sucks. So choose who you want to piss off. Accidentally piss off somebody, which is very unlikely because you called them a week later, or piss off yourself because they went with your competitor. It's up to you. All right. How do I get into the billion-pound space on our website but no meetings? Okay, so Debbie, you said, how do I get into the billion-pound companies in our space? I'm assuming we're in the UK. Yeah, I'm assuming that, not that they're very heavy companies. And they're on our website, but no meetings. So what I'm gathering from your question here, Debbie, is that there's these really large companies are going to your website. You can see them because you're tracking them somehow. And you're like, how do I get these people to book a meeting? You call them. That's simply my answer. And for everybody here who isn't super familiar with my philosophy here, I believe when it comes to cold outreach, the phone is the most powerful tool that we have. So if I see that a really large company has employees that are visiting my website, I'm calling all of those people. I don't even need to call out that they're on our website. I'm going to call them and talk about our value prop. Now, let me give you guys a little secret weapon here. This is a secret campaign is probably what I'd call it, a little cold calling strategy that has worked very well for me. Before I get to that, here's the survey. If you haven't filled out the survey yet, it's really helpful for me. Thank you in advance for doing it. Gives me a lot of insights on how I can keep making these live classes better. Okay, let me give you my special secret outbound call campaign. So one of the things that we'll do in situations where the market is a little bit more complicated and there's a bunch of different potential needs, and cold calling just directly, like, it's just a little challenging because there's a lot of different things that we can do to them. We'll do a canvas approach. You hire somebody to just do canvassing calls where they're making calls to do a survey. That survey has 5 questions about, and it's a dumb survey like, hey, we're calling to see how your company's doing post the election or post the pandemic, whatever. So you're calling that kind of survey. You ask a few questions that are like specific to them and maybe some issues that they might be dealing with. And those issues should be somewhat aligned or at least adjacent to a problem that you actually solve. And then 1 or 2 of your questions should be, are you actively looking for a way to solve that problem? So you're basically asking, do you have this problem? Are you looking for a way to solve that problem? And you kind of tuck it into 5 questions so it still feels like a survey and not just a very direct, do you have a problem question? And with that information, what you do is you learn a ton about your market, which is great. But also, if they say that they have the problem, when I'm calling them, they have that specific problem. So you can speak to them speaking of that problem, and it's going to resonate with them more. And then the other one, if they're actively looking for a solution, this is a really high priority lead because they have the problem. They're actively looking for a way to solve it. So you'll do canvassing calls. The great thing about that is you can use parallel dialers. You can make tons of calls every single day. They're fast. It's easy to do, and somebody overseas can do it. Initially, like I'll do a test with like a sales rep there, and then we'll find somebody overseas who doesn't have that much of an accent to have do the canvassing calls, and it creates a nice little lead feeder system for the other reps. So anyway, that's a nice little tactic to use. All right, another question here. My company helps sales teams and reps offer creative funding for high ticket offers. What is your perspective or experience in offering funding options to close more sales? Good question. So I know of a buddy of mine owns a coaching company, and he used to use, I forget what it's called now, but yeah, he used to use something where, I think they would finance it through that company. He would get 70% of it up front, and then the people would make the payments on the back end. So it's what I've found. I don't use it personally, so rule me out of how like important my opinion is. But what I have found is that it typically is more impactful on consumer offers if you're selling to a consumer. And I'll consider real small businesses a consumer as well. Like people who are really freelancers, coaches who sell to early stage entrepreneurs who don't make 10K a month in revenue, like people who just don't have money. The pricing objection is so real that by spreading out those payments, it helps them. And also, if you as a business owner need the cash earlier and you can't afford to have it spread out because too low of a payment, that could be really useful. So hopefully that was helpful. I don't know if that's exactly what you were looking for. I just don't use those type of things. I sell. I don't sell to buyers who payment plans are really attractive for. So anyway, that's just my my thought on it. I also don't do a lot of payment plan stuff in general. I'm one of these like no debt people. So I don't like doing payment plans unless it's like really a good reason to. Okay, cool. Well, that's it. I don't see any more questions. I hope everybody who's here did the survey because it's really helpful for me if you do the survey. I'll post it in the chat one more time. If in the survey as well, like if there's specific topics that you're interested in, put it in there. I'm constantly going through and thinking of what topics to do next. I repeat some of the best topics so that way more people can get the content. And the other thing I'll give you before you jump off here too, next week we're doing the sales playbook live class. So forrest.com/events. You'll also get emails. Let me address that real quick too. Our email list is me twice a week telling you what live class is coming up that week, just so you know. So when you get an email, for the most part, I mean, we have a couple of campaigns after you download a resource, but for the most part, you're getting 2 emails a week telling you about the class that's coming up. So just keep that in mind. Like, feel free to spot pick the classes you want to register for. Any questions, never hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much. There's a lot you can be doing on a Thursday. You're spending it with me. I appreciate that. And I'm going to go get a raincoat on and what is it called? A surfboard. That's right. And I'm going to surf the tsunami. All right, my friends. We'll talk soon. Bye.